Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening in the stars above for the weekend. Happy Friday, everybody. I can't even believe it's finally Friday. I swear they come faster and faster every week. Suddenly it's Friday, and I love it because that means we have a wonderful weekend on tap. And astrologically, it looks like it might be a good weekend as well. Just a couple little blips on the screen coming up on Sunday, and they're not even that bad of blips. So good for us, right? I see some people already joining us this morning. Good morning, Tom and Pam. It's good to see you two out there, early birds. And I've been sitting here this morning having a crazy morning trying to make reservations to get on a ferry as my son's birthday is on Sunday and we are going over to surprise him. And the surprise is on us. The ferries are not participating in a way that makes it easy for us. Just one of those things, right? Ferries, they're in a vital link here in Washington State, especially on the west side here, where we need to get to the islands and back and forth. And one of them got bumped up pretty bad last week, and so they took one of the ferries from the run that we need to use and took it down south to Seattle. So we're a ferry short. And of course, it's that time of year where everybody wants to go to those islands. So it's always this game that we have to play, see if we can get on at the time that we want to get on. And then, worse yet, how do we get back home? Getting back home is even more difficult at times. So we're just putting out intentions there that we're going to have the perfect ferry going and the perfect ferry time coming home. That's the best way that we can do it. The rest of it's out of our control, so it seems. Now, today, since there isn't a lot going on, I thought it would be a good time for us to maybe do some readings, get some cards out, and do that for some people. And so I'll leave some time toward the end for that. And what I do want to talk about is the weekend's human design or astro design. As you all know, the sun right now is in the sign of Leo, and that puts the earth in the opposite sign, which is Aquarius. So the sun and the earth hold then an opposition always, right? Every day of each sign, the earth and the sun are holding an opposition. And in the gene keys, we see that opposition as an evolutionary path, or even in the human design, we see it as an evolution, a spiral in our consciousness as we are tasked with something, the earth bringing something up to us, and are having to move through that energy in order to get to the highest aspect of what the sun's energy could be bringing us for that period of time or that week. So it's always this dance between the two planets, and understanding how all of that works is important, because if you don't realize, I mean, I could say, yeah, the sun is in the gate 13 and we're all going to become great collaborators this week, but that doesn't speak to what the challenge to do that might be, which is in the earth sitting at the gate 13, which is a storytelling gate. So we've had two storytelling gates back to back, right? The 33 with the sun. For today's the last day that the sun will be at 33, and now we'll have the earth moving into the 13, another storytelling gate. So we're really looking at the story that we tell about our experiences, about what's happening, about where we're going. So I deliberately told you a story this morning about the ferries, right? Are trying to get reservations to get on a ferry to go to Friday Harbor, and the trouble that is ensuing because of all of that, right? Because of accidents that have happened, things out of our control. But the only thing that we can control is our response to it. So we've done our due diligence. We did what we could. And we are just holding the space then for a different reservation to open that will get us there at a more decent time and get us home at an earlier time. So the story is all of that backdrop, right? All of this is how it looks, and this is what's happening, and there's this accident, and that creates less ferries, and now traffic, and blah, 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 blah. That's the story. Now, the story doesn't change right? It's not that the story changes appreciably, because there's still the issue, right? There's still the problem. There's still the experience of dealing with that problem. What's changed, or what can change, and this is the same for everybody, is our own personal response to what is happening, to that story. That's where our power lies in this coming week, right? Is the changes that we make in response to the story. Now, the narrative is what the gate 13 is called, and it's the earth that will be at the gate 13. And the gate of narrative talks about what the things are that we say to ourselves and to others, um, in the story. So the story's details, if you will. And not only that, but every story comes with an emotion, comes with that feeling of what the story is triggering within each of us, right? And the stories are so many and so varied. So what we're really talking about are the stories that you tell all the time, right? The repeating stories. And the opportunity is to change the story, right? Change the response to the story. And then from that, not getting stuck in that old story, right? That story we get kind of encrusted in the story. And then if we're stuck there, then how are we ever going to be able to move our way out of it, right? How do we change the story? So we're needing to create a new empowered response to the stories, and also creating an empowered response in terms of possibilities. Like, what are the possibilities? Well, the possibilities are endless, right? Maybe the ferry system here just hasn't released the extra reservations yet. And by doing our due diligence, checking the app every 20 minutes or so to see if new arrangements have been put up, then we can, get on a different ferry. So possibilities, right? The possibilities are, that's the thing we want to keep contact with. We don't want to lose sight of the fact that we are empowered. Now, as well, part of the lesson with the Earth at the gate 13 is about learning to forgive the past and to redefine ourselves in the context of that past. So, what I mean by that is we all have a story of some sort, something that's happened to us, right? Something that set us on the path for who we are now. Um, and maybe it was a loss of a job, or a change in a relationship, or having to move from your favorite home, or any number of things that could have happened that are embedded in the story. And we get to redefine ourselves in the context of the story by talking about how that impacted our lives in a positive way, right? Even if it was not a fun experience to live through a breakup, or to live through a divorce, or to have financial challenges or health challenges or anything like that, we are empowered to see what the beauty was in the story and then forgive the old story. So we want to tell a new story of self-loving, empowering ourselves, being honoring the path that took us from point A to point B, and using the power then of our personal narrative to create intentionally. We're back to that word again, intentional, right? Setting intentions and living from intention. And the intention is the most important part, because it aligns us with what will manifest, because what we focus on is what we're creating. So, any questions about any of that? Let me know this morning. I see J-Lo's joined us, Christine Buckingham. Good morning, Angela, Christine. Good to see you guys out there this morning. So, in the gene keys, when we look at the gate 13, it's a different kind of energy than just the listening and hearing energy of human design. And I'm not even sure I really brought up the listening part yet, so I'll delve back into that here in just a minute. But in the gene keys, the lowest expression of the gate 13 energy is discord. In the gift, it's discernment. And in the highest expression, it is empathy. Now, the gate 13 sits on the identity center, which is either the yellow or white diamond that is center of your human design chart. If the diamond is white, it means that you have it open. That means that you do not have a set identity. You're kind of a chameleon type of person. So consequently, the energies that that center provides, which are direction and lovability and self-worth, are more mutable for you. That's going to be more based on who you happen to be around. Whereas someone who has a defined identity center has a defined way of being. They know who they are, and their directional and their sense of lovability is more consistent. It's consistent, where someone who has that center white, it is more inconsistent, right? Because it's going to be variable based on who you happen to be around, and or what planetary transits are affecting you. So in this particular way, then we're all going to react differently to this particular week's energy. And in the gene keys, when we look at discord in a gate that sits on the identity center can almost be like conflicting ideas of what direction to go in, or not knowing what direction to go in, not knowing what's right for you, or having people around you that have a different that all have different opinions, or all different ideas of what you should do, or are telling you different stories, and then you get kind of confused, or in discord or disarray even, based on those stories. Where the gift of discernment is really about, I think discernment really begins when you know yourself, right? You have to know who you are, because then you can discern and pick and choose through the noise around you what's true and what's not true, right? What's yours and what's not yours. So it's really very important for us to understand who we are, which is why getting a human design reading, coming to these different broadcasts where I'm talking about, these things, and then learning to equate what I'm talking about to your own personal chart are so very beneficial, because knowing yourself first is going to help you be in the flow of what's correct for you. And when we're in the correct flow, discernment is easy, because we know who we are. We know what our energy is about. We know what is true for us, and we choose based on what we know to be true about ourselves, rather than all of the discord creating confusion about who we are and what we're here to do, where we're going, and all of that, what intentions to set, etc. In the highest expression, it's empathy. And that to me seems like a mismatch in the energy of the identity center. But empathy is, all humans have empathy, right? We all have the ability to feel for one another, to be able to empathize with one another. This is different than being empathic, right? So some people will say, I'm an empath, or I'm empathic. And then I'll pull up their human design chart, and indeed they are not, because they're talking about the emotion of empathy, taking in other people's emotions. In human design, that happens when you have an open solar plexus or emotional center, and not when you have a defined center. But what we are all capable of feeling is empathy. It's a human trait, empathy, right? And it's one of the highest expressions of who we can be, when we are in empathy for our fellow human beings. Now, when we're at the gate 13, the gate is called the gate of listening, or the gate of hearing. Actually, there's also, is this the one? Hold on, I want to check the old traditional human design, because they all have these different names in the old human design. The 13 was called the gate of the listener in traditional human design. In the more quantum human design now, it is called the gate of narrative. And in other books of human design, you're going to hear it called different things, about hearing, listening, being able to be in the flow of the listening, a field of listening. So I think a lot of times when we look at the names of the gates, they can kind of confuse us, because when we look at the energy of the gate, we're looking at not getting stuck in our old stories. But where does listening come in? Well, I think the listening part comes in when we have to really hear what it is we're saying. Sometimes we're saying things so unconsciously, right? We're just throwing out a bunch of words. And it's kind of our testament of our time that we're recreating the vocabulary, the words that we're going to use to describe ourselves, to describe our history, our stories that we tell, and also how we describe ourselves and the things that have happened to us. So, a part of listening is to really stop, slow down enough to hear what it is you're saying or what's being said. Like there's a saying that I keep saying it off and on, like that something is to die for, right? That view is to die for, that cupcake is to die for. Well, is that really true? So we really want to dig into the words to die for. Am I really willing to die over a cupcake or over a view? Um, so the words, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong to say, I'm just saying we got to really tap into, really hear what it is we're saying. What is the meaning behind the words that we say? And if we can take that and translate that outward throughout all of the things that we say throughout a given day about ourselves, about our friends, about our country, about our you fill in the blank, then it gives you a real idea of where it is that we can be stuck, right? Where we can get caught up in that old narrative, that old sense of who we are. Now, we want to get this squared away because we want to be able to move to the warmth of the sun, if you will. And the sun is at the gate 7 this week, coming up starting tomorrow, by the way. So this will be from the 6th through the 11th. So through the day of the full moon. And this energy of the sun is going to be at the gate of collaboration. So we're in a position at this time to really learn to listen to one another so that we can collaborate in sort of a new way of being in leadership. So the gate 7 is also on the identity center. So we have another call for love and direction, for self-worth and worthiness coming from the gate of collaboration. In the gene keys, the lowest expression of this gate is division. And we have enough of that on the planet already. And division leads us to guidance in the gift. And the gift of guidance leads us to virtue. Again, these words, they're just words, but if you start to look at what is it talking about in the hologram of that energy, it's about the direction for leadership energy, the support behind our leaders, the support, learning to serve others through teamwork, through collaboration, through influencing one another and the leader through support. And what do I mean by that? Influencing, being able to have a leader who's willing to stay open and listen. He or she needs to be very adept at listening to what it is that people are talking to them about in terms of what do the people need if we're talking about, a bigger group. What does the team need if we're talking about a smaller group? What does the business need if we're talking about, the more professional aspects of that? Because the leader is only as good as the team behind her or him, right? That is the truth, right? If the people around the leader are only telling the leader what they think the leader wants to hear, then we're not really getting good leadership. The leader isn't being able to hear anything different, right? They're just sycophants saying the same things over and over again that they think the leader wants to hear. It's funny because I've been watching on Netflix this show called Versailles, and it's about Louis XIV, King of France, and he was he named himself. I think he self-styled himself the king, the Sun King, right? The Sun King, like the whole world revolved around him, and he's an interesting character. And interesting because I would have thought he was a Leo the way he was behaving, but he's born in September, a Virgo, and yet there's just this whole human design thing about leadership that I just kept seeing in it, where he has himself a council, right, of men around him, and there's only maybe one or two voices that ever dare to speak something different than what the king wants to hear. And I wonder how many times that happens in our experience, where instead of being the voice of the people, right, the people, the team, that we're just telling our leaders what it is that we think that they want to hear. Or is it that they surround themselves by people that will talk like that so that they don't have to deal with dissent? So in order for us to move through the times that we're in and the leadership styles that we've been accustomed to, we really have to bring in this more collaborative and consensus building energy. Now, rather than where we've been, which is the struggle and the fight for leadership, right? Think about, I mean, here in the US, as much as we think we are a democracy, listen to the talks that they have before they go into the election, right? If they're just mudslinging at one another, no one's really talking about, well, this is what I stand for. And my esteemed colleagues, they have their own way of thinking, they have their own way of being, but this is me. This is what I would do. This is how I would lead. This is how the direction I would move us in. Instead, we hear a bunch of, that person did that person can't think for themselves, that, whatever. So we have been in a habit, it's definitely a habit of mudslinging, struggling, and fighting to stand out in a leadership capacity, kind of manipulating even in order to be seen as the one most capable to be the leader. Such an old model, right? It's such an old model, and one that we really have to cast away if we want to move forward, right? If we're moving forward into, more collaborative times. And, in Richard Rudd's estimation, one of the things that we're moving toward is called synarchy. And in synarchy, we have not a hierarchy where we have leader and all the peons listed below. What we have is all people equal, all people the same with an equal voice, blending those voices together to create, as opposed to that hierarchical way of being. But even in a synarchy, there's ultimately someone has to be the leader, right? Ultimately, someone has to be the one responsible for making the decision and putting into play the next steps. So, but the difference would be in a synarchy, all the voices are heard and not just the ones that you want to hear, right? Not just the ones that are going to tell you what you think you want to hear. So we have a lot to learn. And the gate 7's energy, leadership style wise, is often kind of, I relate it to the chief of staff, where, we have the figurehead, and then the chief of staff is the one that is behind the scenes, organizing all the people, all the groups, unifying the groups around an idea. So the chief of staff energy is very important in the grand scheme of things. So here we have, that is our week. And, I just encourage you to watch whatever country you're living in, watch your government, watch the dysfunction in it, but, watch also the people that are attempting to come out of that dark, and how are they doing that? And, watch for those people, because those are likely the ones you're going to want to support. Try not to get stuck in the old party line energies, but look at the people involved and who would you like to see as a leader, because they have a unifying ability, or because they have a spirit of collaborating or consensus building in order to get their ideas across. So those are the big energies that we have coming up for the week. I see we have more people that have joined us. Good morning, Lisa. Good to see you. Erica, hello. She says, I'm out in my garden. Good morning and happy Friday. I love it that you're already out in your garden. Christine Buckingham, I loved that series. Indeed, he believed he was ordained by God. I think all kings of the time sort of had that feeling like they were, brought to that position, ordained by God. He actually even had himself made the head of the religion in France. I mean, there's a lot of ego there, and a lot of danger in what he was doing at the time. But take a look at that and apply it to our own day and time that we're in right now. And you see that we haven't gone too far from that. We may not have kings or those people that we have in government might think they are kings or queens. So we still haven't gotten very far away from that energy of that kind of leadership style. So these are our opportunities to move us further and further in toward that team building and teamwork, collaboration energy. Good morning, Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel. She's on her way to Denver. Ooh, must be one of your friend concerts. The guy that you like, I can never think of his name. Tom says, "What's Marianne Williamson up to these days?" I do get meditations from her every morning. She seems to be doing a lot of writing and running meditation things, kind of back into the more spiritual world. She does tend to write a lot about politics, and she does sort of call out the elephant in the room sometimes. I don't know if she has any plans for running for office anymore, but it's that level of person, that kind of thinking that we need. We need to have people that are willing to think outside of the box and to be different in our governments at this time. Pam Zaruba, amen. Tell me the truth, even if it hurts. P.S. Just do it nicely, please. Right? There's a way to collaborate that says, that idea has some flaws. Let me point out the flaws and let's see if we can work those out in order to make it better. That's all we have to do. We don't have to be judgmental or critical, like your idea is so freaking stupid, you're not thinking right, all of those kinds of things serve to undermine everybody. But if we said, okay, I like that idea, I see a few flaws in it, I think maybe we can improve on that, and go with that. Let's see if we can improve. Here are the things that are, maybe that we need to think a little bit more about. That is so much different than what I see that we try to do at this moment in time. Christine, his excesses led eventually to the French Revolution. Oh, yeah. Historically, he was in the 1600s. The French Revolution occurred in the 1700s, but you can so see by what the things are that he's doing that he laid the groundwork for that revolution. Indeed, indeed, indeed. People were tired of being walked on like that. Okay, questions about the human design for the week? Please feel free to put those in there or in the comment section. I want to talk a little bit about the moons because we're in a weekend where the moon is going to shift. So today we have the moon in Scorpio, and tomorrow at, let's see, I didn't even check the time, but let's do that really quickly. At 9:39 a.m. my time, West Coast time, the moon will shift into Sagittarius, which means that we do have a void of the moon coming from, let's see, today's the 6th, from 4:24 a.m. Saturday. No, today's the 5th. So tomorrow morning, 4:24 a.m. until 9:39 a.m. So a very short void. And just to remind you all, what does the void of course moon mean? It's a time where there are no new aspects being made by the moon. The moon is sort of a timekeeper, if you will. And it is the moon's movement that can trigger the right timing for something. And when the moon isn't making any new connections, we're kind of stuck in a funk, if you will. We call it sometimes the wandering moon, the void of course moon, where there's nothing new happening. And so if we're trying to apply newness to something, if we're trying to push something forward, it's not a very fortuitous time for that. There's just not the energy to keep it going, right? There's no legs to keep it walking forward. So we avoid starting anything new in the void. Instead, we try to clean things up, finish things up, put the periods at the end of the sentences. And today, though, that won't be, or tomorrow, that will be happening for just a very short period of time, mostly for us on the West Coast while people are sleeping. For the Eastern time zones, it'll be later in the day, but it is Saturday. So to me, when that happens on a weekend, it's maybe, we change our mind a few times about the things that we might want to do. Like maybe I was going to clean out the refrigerator and I decide, no, I'd rather, go out and play in my garden first, and then I'll come back and do the refrigerator later, those kinds of things. So that it's not a very powerful impact at that time. When we're looking at the moon in Scorpio, then today, the moon is going to be connecting with Neptune, Pluto, and Mercury. And very quickly, right? They're moving through these different connections. The moon in Scorpio is very intuitive and it is deep. There's no superficiality that comes with Scorpio territory. Wherever it is, we dive in, right? We commit to, or we are committed to. And we also have a lot of passion around. But the energy of Scorpio is really geared towards self-mastery. And I think you probably have heard me say that a couple of times. That's the guy's name, Debbie, John Bonamassa, I'm sure I'm butchering that name, but awesome that you're going to go see him again. You guys should be besties by now. So you should tell him I come here every year to see you. Anyway, so Scorpio energy, then it gives us this ability to tap into what it is that we're really passionate about, because therein lies what self-mastery is about, mastering ourselves, right? I can't control other people. I can guide, right? I can guide people to their highest and best. I can guide people to what's true for them. But ultimately, you all have to take your own steps, as I have to take my own steps to really claim that self-mastery. So the light, if you will, in Scorpio is our moving ever closer to the mastery of the self, right? Because that's really only thing that I can really control is me, right? In the more negative side of Scorpio, in the shadow energy of Scorpio, we have things like the cloying energy, the holding on to the old, the baggage, dragging, the old with us, the old grievances, our old experiences, uh, uh, being distrustful that, people can change or anything like that. Um, and holding on to that baggage, of course, slowing us down, dragging us backward, causing us to not let go of grievances, not to be engaged with forgiveness. So the higher form of Scorpio is willing to let go, even though it's more difficult for them. It is a fixed sign. In astrology, the fixed signs do kind of like to hold on. They like to keep where they are. There's loyalty, there's steadfastness, there's steadiness and stability, but sometimes there's also that rut and they get stuck. And Scorpio's rut is about what are we holding on to that is no longer serving us, that we can let go of in order to really establish our self-mastery and our passion to really live committed to our ideals, to our families, or to whatever it is that makes you excited about life. Now on Saturday morning, again, it's going to switch. The moon is going to move out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius, a fire sign. So we have a change up in the element of the weekend. So rather than it being in the watery realm of Scorpio, it'll be in the fire realm of Sagittarius, where we have the more optimistic and intellectual adventurer kind of energy. The moon in Sagittarius likes philosophy, right? Likes to look at behind the scenes, going deeper into knowledge, going deeper behind beliefs. So, where Scorpio's just holding on to those beliefs and not letting them go, Sagittarius is really delving into them, right? Going into all of the different belief systems and coming back with wisdom about who they are, what the world looks like, the truths, right? The capital T truths, rather than just the superficial ones. So we have an interesting weekend there. Now, the negative part of Sagittarius energy is it has a tendency to be very blunt. So we might be very biting words can be very close to the surface for us this weekend. We'll want to watch out for that, right? Don't get emotionally triggered into saying things that are hurtful or harmful to people. Remember that if you want to criticize or be judgmental, that never happens without an invitation from that person to share your judgment or your criticism, and it's never done in a mean-spirited way, right? It can be done in an honest way. Truth is part of Sagittarian energy. Honesty is a part of Sagittarian energy, but sometimes it comes out very bluntly, and that can hurt feelings. So we want to be careful of that for the weekend. So, Leilani, good to see you with us. It's early where you are, I'm assuming, right? Let's see, it's 8:30 my time, so 5:30 in Hawaii, if you're still in Hawaii. Anyway, so now this morning, we have time. I don't have anything else to share too much of major time-consuming nature. So I'm going to throw it out there to you. If you want me to do a card reading for you, or you want me to look at your astrology chart, start letting me know in the chat. All right. And I'll try to keep track. Right now, the last comment is Leilani. So anything after that should be people wanting to tell me they need a card reading or they would like me to look at their chart. So go ahead and do that while I talk a little bit about Sunday's transits, where we have Venus in a trine to the planet Neptune. Now, some planets have very similar energies. So when we look at Mercury, Mercury rules the mind, and Uranus rules the higher mind. When we look at Venus, Venus rules love, and Neptune rules unconditional love. So we have the higher octave, if you will, of the same energies. But so Venus being the love that we have in relationships, right? It's also finances and our values, our self-worth. So love of self, love of others. And then with Neptune, what we have is taking that love to the next degree, which that next degree is about unconditional love, unconditionally loving one another. So a trine between the two planets, Venus and Neptune, makes it easier for us to tap into the level of unconditional love. So even though we may have the need with the moon in Sagittarius to speak truth, to speak bluntly or honestly, we are also being influenced on Sunday, at least, by Venus and Neptune, where we want to bring that out with more love energy. So loving, being more loving, but also being more self-loving, more guided by your values, right? If you are telling people that you value, being truthful, but then you find yourself telling lies, even little white lies, then you're not living in your values. So it's an opportunity for us too to realign with our values. Then other transit on Sunday is Mars in a square to Saturn. That one makes me a little bit more uncomfortable, right? Only because Mars is in the later degrees of Taurus, and and Saturn is in later degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius is fixed air. Taurus is fixed earth. So we can almost see this budding up of different ideals and ideas of the way things should be. Literally, if we are applying the planet's energy to working something, to completing a project, let's say, or putting in some really, good time work into something, then that energy shouldn't be too much of a hassle. It should be giving you more focusability, right? But squares kind of bring up a tension. So there's this tension of Mars and wanting to move forward, and Saturn that says do it with a plan, right? Do it in a stepwise fashion, do it deliberately. Mars a little bit more hot-headed, Saturn a little bit more grounded, but we have both of those planets in signs that are more deliberate, a little more grounded. So I see that if maybe there's some work to get done, that we can do that with great deliberateness and with an attitude of, do first comes A, then comes B, then comes C. But if you keep trying to skip steps, that things maybe are going to fall apart. But we might also have conflict or confrontation going on between the energies of Mars and authority figures, right? So any place in our lives where we might be feeling kept down by someone, then that conflict can come to the surface. So be watchful for that. Remember, it's all about love. Keep applying the love. Keep applying the Venus Neptune energy to any situations that come up for you that might trigger anger or upset on Sunday, especially on Sunday. Okay, so let me see. Who was the last contact? There we had Leilani, Leslie Tankersley Arboleda. I'd love you to peek at my chart. So I'll need two things from you, Leslie. One, which chart would you like me to look at, astrology or human design? And I do not recognize your name, which means I likely do not have your birth information. So you'll have to supply me with that. Angela Christine is giving me her birth information. So, and I'm assuming you want so November 6th, 1975. I'll also need your birthplace and birth time, Angela Christine. And Christine Buckingham says, yes, please. Okay, I'm going to write Angela Christine here so I don't get a bunch of birthdays mixed up. So Angela Christine, while you're getting me the other pieces of information and Leslie getting me your information, I will pull a card for Christine. J-Lo, I will definitely get you because I remember last time I did miss you. So Christine, any clue what kind of deck you might want to have me pull for? I'm guessing. I see that, Tom. Thank you. Toronto, 5:30. Is 5:30 a.m., Angela? Oh, 5:30 or 19 or 17:30. Um, and I'm not seeing. Okay, so Christine, I'm just going to pull a goddess card for you, okay? Because that was the first card deck that jumped in my mind. And AM. Okay, thank you, Angela. And let's see here. So, Christine, be thinking about what it is that you need an answer to, or if it's just something that in general that you want, so that you have a frame of reference for the card. And I pulled the card Sophia, and she is divine wisdom. Sophia, she is 42, or is that a 47? Let's look in the book here. I think it's 47. And she was also upside down. It's 47. So when the cards come out upside down in this deck, it is an alignment message for you. So how to better align with the energy of divine wisdom. So here you have, when you are disconnected from your higher power, you begin to believe that you alone are the source of abundance in life. It is wise to commit to a conscious and deliberate daily connection to a higher power. When you forget to do this, you may place too much attention on materialism, work, money, goals, and the like. The goddess Sophia reminds you that it's the spiritual aspect and the invisible aspect, the essence of your desires, that means more than the form. You may be mistaking something false for divine guidance right now. It's time to come back into alignment and receive true divine guidance, divested from wishful thinking or ego attachments. Opening to the wisdom of the mystery of the universe is your alignment task now. Let the goddess Sophia guide you to your magic. The most meaningful and beautiful expression of yourself is waiting for you, Christine. So, Sophia, she's a beautiful card. All right. So, Angela, Christine, AM, good. So I'm going to go and pull your chart. See, I had Astro open, didn't I? No, I did not. And then also be thinking, Angela, what is it that you want me to look at? Because in the interest of time, I need to be able to focus on some aspect. Are you experiencing a challenge right now? Are you, having to make a big decision? Is there something important that's going on that you really want me to focus in on? Because that's so helpful in the amount of time we have. So we have the 6th of November and Canada, Toronto. There we go, in Ontario. Okay, gotcha. And let me get that chart up for you. And I'll share my screen if that's okay with you, that, everybody will see it. I'll try to, be circumspect about how much information showing, but sometimes that's out of my choice too. All right, now let's get the chart. And I'm going to do a transit chart for you so we can see what's going on now as it is juxtaposed against where planets were when you were born. And let me share my screen and share screen. There we go. All right, so somebody tell me if you are seeing this chart in the chat, just so I know for sure everybody is seeing it. And somebody just say yes or no. And she's interested to know if her 2nd and 8th house affect my north and south nodes. That's a great question. So let me go back to the chart itself. So the 2nd house and the 8th house are their money houses, right? The 2nd house shows the things, for example, that you spend your money on, like what are the valuables that you would spend money on, as well as how you earn money. And you actually have quite a few planets in the 2nd house. And I'm using, by the way, the whole sign method. So you have anything in Scorpio is in your 2nd house, including your north node, your sun, the planet Uranus and Mercury. So you have definitely nodal influences going on in your second and your eighth house. So your own north node is in Scorpio with the south node transiting across it. So you're at a halfway point in a cycle that began about 9 years ago. So the cycle of the nodes for us personally is about 18 and a half years long. And it gives us an opportunity every time we have a nodal return to start up on our path of destiny, or to get that much closer. So let's see, how old are you? You're just, into your 40s. So likely just a few years back, you had your Uranus opposition, and that would have happened also in across the second and the eighth house. So you've likely had a lot going on in the area of life that has to do with money that you earn or money that comes to you from other sources, maybe having to face a lot of money, maybe financial worries or financial concerns, and or the other thing that is likely is that you were also faced with, well, what is it that I really want to do to be able to make money? With Scorpio, maybe it was having to change the work that you were doing to be more reflective of depth, right? Doing something that really mattered to you rather than just doing something that really didn't matter. I can't imagine a Scorpio just sitting for a lifetime doing work that they don't love, right? So maybe that was a change that was occurring, but you're also at a halfway point in that cycle. So hopefully you're coming to some kind of point where you're going to start to see the results of the changes you might have made 9 or so years ago. Now, at the opposite end is that Uranus North Node Mars conjunction. They are very close to sitting on top of your South Node. So maybe you're having to deal with debts from the past or past decisions. Maybe you're feeling like you need to cast off a lot of things in order to move forward. So if anything, what would suit you best is a simplification of your life. How do I simplify my life? How do I simplify my life around my values? How do I simplify my spending, my buying? All of those kinds of things should be very much uppermost in your mind at this particular time. So let me go back to StreamYard real quick here and see, does that make sense to you, Angela? Is that fitting what is happening for you in your own life? The one thing I can really say about this whole experience for you is that you've got to get a better, clearer picture of your values, right? The sun here very much going to point you in the direction of what you value. And Scorpio is about passion, right? What are you passionate about? There's also investigativeness here, right? There's mystery solving here, maybe solving the mystery, processing anything that's keeping you outside of your own values, and you're tracking with, what it is that you really from your own inner passion want to do. And you've got help, right? These 3 planets on the other side are really opening the pathway, just saying, let it all go. Let whatever isn't you fall away so that the real you, the real authentic things that you want to do come up to the surface and are allowed their free expression. All right. So I hope that's helpful for you. And let's see, can I close that out? And did I stop sharing my screen when I did that? I guess I did. Angela says dead on. Awesome. Okay, let me go back and see if I found Leslie's. Okay, so Leslie, I'm going to write this down really quickly. 4676, 2:33 p.m. Tampa. All right. So let's do yours. And again, same thing for you, Leslie. Be thinking about what is it that you would really like me to focus on, and or what is the challenge that you're experiencing at the moment that you really want to work through, so that I have the ability to focus in on just that. And I'm sorry I closed that screen out because now I got to start over. So Leslie, and I had April 6th. That's funny because Angela was the 6th of November. What is it about that? And you were in afternoon and in Tampa, Florida. Okay, good. So bringing this one up. I'm in the, there you are. And in just a second, I'm also going to bring up a transit chart for you. And I'm going to take and relieve some of these points that I like to look at so that we're not all crazed about it. And here we go. So just a moment, I will share my chart or my screen with everybody. Perf. All right, so Leslie, we're looking at your chart now. I'm going to go back to StreamYard really quickly here to see if you gave me a clue as to what you wanted to focus on, your primary partnership. Okay, so then when we're talking about a partnership, we're going to be looking at the 7th house. And if it's a romantic partnership, then we can also look at the 4th or 5th house. The 5th house is about love and romance, while the 7th house is about marriage or the partnership. So it could be business partnerships, or it can be marriage, or even, in these days we have these committed partnerships. They choose not to get married, but there's still the commitment there in the relationship. And for you, your 7th house right here sits in Aquarius. That makes me, whenever I see Aquarius there on the 7th house, I always think of unique types of relationships, open relationships, or relationships that are sort of different than others, that are, maybe there's the common basis of the relationship is unique in some way, shape, or form. And you have the planet Saturn moving through here. So it's likely since about December of 2020 that you have been dealing with maybe some important subjects within the confines of the relationship. That maybe there has been some serious things that have been happening, either serious conversations or serious events that have happened that have put pressure on the relationship. And of course, Saturn is still there. And Saturn brings that discipline to the relationship. So maybe you're having to rewrite the contract in some way between the two of you, and whatever that might mean to you. On the other side, in the 1st house, is Leo, and Leo is where your ascendant is. And the sun, of course, right now in Leo, that puts a lot of shine on the individual, right? The individual nature of who you are. And the 7th house in Aquarius is about how we are together, right? This is the more group energy in Aquarius. So looking in the mirror of the relationship, what do you see is a truth about you? Because you can't really just take what's going on in the relationship and blame the other person, or whatever it is that you're seeing is going on in the relationship is truly a reflection of what's going on within you. Right. So if the relationship is getting more serious, or is getting, deeper or more committed, then there's a deeper, more committed sense about you living out your truth and your passion and who you are, and making decisions that are heart centered. But if you find yourself getting away from one another, moving, further apart, then you might be also moving further away from where it is that your heart sits. So the sun on the 1st house now bringing that into focus for you. But then what are you seeing in the reflection of the other person in the 7th house? What are the issues? Because that seems to be what's up in your face, is what are the issues? Saturn brings up karma, but karma can be the benefits of having stuck together through thick and thin. Karma can be the natural parting of the ways, if that's what's right for you. But that all has to happen in the context of, you really looking in the mirror of that relationship and seeing what is true for you. All right. Now I'm going to go back and see if you have any comments about that. Leslie, married with kiddos. So is there this, so let me go back and look at the chart too, because when we're looking at the possibility, I don't know if you're asking me this, but is there a possibility, say, of divorce or a renewing of the vows of the relationship or the commitment in the relationship. And the eighth house is often the house we would look at for the dissolution of a marriage or of a partnership or a committed relationship. You do have Neptune moving through that, and he is going to hit your natal Venus, not likely until next year. So I feel like there might still be some confusion about what's going on between the two of you. Maybe deception, maybe something hidden, either, and what's hidden in a relationship. Sometimes it is the real true feelings I have about that person that I'm not expressing. Maybe it's that there's some kind of an affair that's been going on that I choose not to share, or I have, a suspicion of that. Whatever it is, there's something maybe hidden in the relationship or hidden within yourself that has created some confusion in that relationship. So it's time to really sort that out, get to some truths. The high side of all of this is that next year, when Neptune does make its way to 28 degrees of Pisces, where your Venus is, it could repair the relationship. It could be a new understanding within that relationship of one another, or it could lead to the breaking up of that relationship, leaving you both free to move on to relationships that are more in alignment with your truth. I think sometimes Venus in Pisces can idealize the relationship. And even though it's not necessarily in your house of relationship, is there some imagination thing that's going on for you about that person in your life? And are you now having the comeuppance of it, right? Or is the real person, the reality of that now coming up, and you're having to work through those kinds of issues as well? So it's not clear yet what that outcome might be, because there's still that confusion around it. And the confusion is really about, how do I feel about all of it, right? How do I truly feel? And the best way to do that is, again, looking through the mirror of the relationship. So, okay. Now let's see. I skipped over J-Lo last time. So J-Lo, you're going to have to tell me, what do you want? Tell me what you want, girl. Tell me what you want. Is it human design? Is it astrology? I need to know which of your charts to bring up. Good morning, Stacy Beltran. What do you need from us to look at our chart? Stacy, I would need your birth time, birthplace, and date of birth. But I'm thinking that I might have done a reading for you before, so I might still have you in there. Only one half of the chart being seen. Oh, darn. All right. Thank you for letting me know that, J-Lo. Okay, so going back further here, Holy Stars woman, I feel very seen right now. That's the wonderful thing about astrology, is it does put our right front and center, right? It brings everything out, being seen, right? There's just no doubt that the chart actually pulls out of us the things that we're meant to be experiencing, learning about at the moment. So J-Lo wants to look at her astrology. All right, my dear, you shall have astrology. Let me pull that up for you. Jacqueline Lopez, there you are. And I will try to fix it this time so that the actual screen that I share is the correct one. Share screen. All right, now tell me real quickly, somebody, are you seeing the whole? I can see it. I can see that you're seeing the whole chart. So J-Lo, what is your question, or what is it that you want me to take a look at for you specifically, so that I can actually answer a question for you today? Oh, Stacy, congratulations. Unfortunately, this wonderful experience has been made less enjoyable because of all my fears and worries about his parents and their abilities. Oh, good. Ho'oponopono, a wonderful thing to do when you're feeling that. Stacy, I'm not going to have time to get to that today. J-Lo, definitely tell me what it is that you want to look at. In the meantime, I'm going to take a look at the chart myself. Whoops, this is the one I'm sharing, so that I can just cue in and see. Oh gosh, so I see that you have some unconsciousness stuff coming up, right? Mars, Uranus, and the North Node still very tightly conjunct in your 12th house in Taurus. And, this is, I once made a huge mistake, and a new moon that was happening in my 12th house. I said, help me to let go of all my fears, and or at least, show me all my limitations. And oh my God, it was a watershed moment in my life as so much stuff came up. Well, in this moment in time, I would imagine in your life, there may be quite a bit coming up in terms of, things that have been lying in the shadows. What's lying in the underneath things that has kept you from, being and expressing the truth of who you are. And of course, you've just recently done a soul realignment with me, and no doubt that has triggered some things that might be coming up as well. I'm going to go back to StreamYard real quick because I want to see Jupiter coming back and forth in the 10th. Okay, let's look at Jupiter for you because that's a good one. Jupiter turned retrograde on July 28th. And what we have with Jupiter turning retrograde is the inward turn of our growth, or our growth of self, but also our growth of our broadening of our horizons in the outer world. But because it's retrograde, it turns it inward. And you're having a Jupiter return at the same time. So in this moment in time, in this 11th house, which is the house of hopes and wishes and dreams, and your bigger reason for being, the bigger reason for what it is that you want to do, who you want to be, as well as then the networks of people that are going to help support you or that you're going to support going forward. And with the Jupiter return here, this hasn't happened for 12 years, right? This is the first time in 12 years you're having a Jupiter return. So this is a very powerful time, and you get a threefer, right? It went over once. Now it's moving back again today. It's right on it. And then when Jupiter turns back to direct in October, it's going to go back over that same spot. So what is the dream? What is your goal? What is it? Your vision, right? This is a very visionary house in astrology. And then it is putting the pieces on the chessboard, the table, that are going to help you build what it is that you want to bring into matter. And this is an Aries for you. So Aries is independent. It's very action oriented, and it moves forward sometimes in very bold ways. So you're going to have to resist maybe the fear, and you're going to have to step forward boldly, but you'll also have to do the work on the internal so that the steps you do take don't turn out to be nightmare steps, right? That you are doing the things that make sense for you, that are not you staying stuck in the past way of doing things, right? So I think you're kind of pulled between I want to stay things like they are, they're fine, I don't need to change. But there's this other very powerful component that's pulling you, almost compelling you to move forward with some kind of dream or some kind of vision that you have. Her name is Jan Spiller. Her books are Astrology for the Soul, I believe it is. She talks about this house as being the house of wishes and dreams, and that planets that move through this area, particularly the sun, really focus us in on what our intentions are, and being very clear about our intentions, being intentional. And then you can have all the intentions in the world, but if you don't take any of the steps, you don't bring those intentions in to the world, right? So that's what you're struggling with at the moment, taking the steps, needing to take the steps that will bring you into that broadening of your horizons, right? Maybe it's a new business. That's perfectly in alignment there. Maybe it's a new way of making money through your business. All different kinds of ways there. J-Lo, I asked that in the 39 transit after our session. I ended up getting sick for 2 days when I asked that. Sounds like exciting times for you, J-Lo. Getting sick can sometimes be the call from the soul or the inner self to come into quietness, right? Because maybe you're trying to do too much. Maybe it's too frenetic, too frantic. I know you have a tendency to want to really dig in and keep digging for answers and getting more and more and more answers. But do those more and more answers really help, or have they hindered? So maybe getting sick was about coming back into rest, coming back into a status of quiet so that you can reintegrate, right? Integrate. So Louis Gomez, have courage, J-Lo. It's like jumping from a plane. I love that. J-Lo says she will surely push herself in a nice way, gently. Gently, my friend, very gently. Okay. I wish I could stay here for much longer and help everybody. Unfortunately, I have a wedding to get to today, so I have a lot to do before then. I do want to make an announcement, though. Let's see, the third, if you like doing this, having me read your charts, the third Friday of the month, every month, this will be August 19th. Had to make sure I had August up on the calendar. It'll be August 19th. I do an AstroDesign meetup. It is at 12 noon Pacific time, and that's 3 p.m. East Coast time, and it's free, right? You just come join us with the Zoom link that I'll post on the Living Astrology Facebook page, and I sent it out in an email as well if you are on my email list. And you can come in and ask me all the questions you want about your charts, either human design, gene keys, astro, whatever you want, right? Those questions get answered in that hour and a half or so that I am on. And that's all we're doing, right, in that period of time. So that is it for me. Indeed, Lewis, I hope you do join us again. And Tom, quick card reading for you. Tom, when I hang up here, I'll call you and we'll do a card reading for you. I've got to drop this down so I can get the production done. All right, guys. Much love to everybody. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Bye for now.